This is a Delfield commercial prep table. This is used in a pizza restaurant. It's kind of like a smaller version of what you would see in Subway. Of course, there's the cutting board that goes here, and then up here go all your trays with vegetables, and down here there's usually racks in here. And this belongs to a friend of mine. I don't do much refrigeration anymore. And let me first start off by saying that you're going to see some unconventional techniques here in diagnosis and repair. So I know someone's going to post a comment, "I've been doing refrigeration for 55 years and what you're doing is all wrong and it's dangerous and you're going to die and the customers are going to die." So that's fine if you don't agree with the way I do things. The goal is that we all get to the same place, which is the thing is working when we're done. My way might just cost a little bit less. So anyway, I can't really work on this at the restaurant because it's too cramped, so I just take the truck down there and get it. This is a chronic problem he's had because basically up here there's a lot of pickled foods, and the acids from the pickled foods, well, first of all, the problem with this is it's leaking refrigerant, Freon if you want to call it that. And it's been a chronic problem because the acids that evaporate from the pickles and the pickled foods and the olives and the jalapenos and all that stuff, they usually eat up the evaporator coil. And his previous unit was so eaten up that he replaced it with this one. This one's not that old. The previous one was R22. This one's R404, which is a replacement for 22. I took the back off and I put this tap valve on it, and these suck, but they'll get the customer cooled off when there's no other option. So we need to find the leak in this. And finding leaks is always fun because they can be a total hassle. So I'm suspecting it's in one of two places. It's either in the evaporator inside, or it's down here in the drain pan. The drain pan, the discharge from the compressor wraps around in the drain pan to kind of boil that water off. Let's see. So anyway, I've been charging this with R600, which is propane. And propane will pretty much just straight drop in to R404 and R22. And I'm sure everyone's clenching, "Oh, that's dangerous, it's going to explode." Well, on this unit, there are no switches that spark on the inside of the cabinet. The cold control is right here, so even if the inside was to fill up with propane, there'd be no ignition source. And I've been charging it about, I'd say it goes empty in 4 to 5 days. It's a bad leak. It doesn't hold much, probably less than an ounce of propane, but it goes flat real quick. So let's work on finding the leak. Also, the first time I went up there, the fan had broken and fallen apart, and it was on a Sunday and the supply house wasn't open, so I basically came home and got a muffin fan, electronic muffin fan. Look at how this is like 3-4 weeks in here. Look at how the acids have already started eating this fan up. I do have the fan. I did get the blade. So I have the original fan to put back in it with the shaded pole motor. And you can see these are where these usually leak from. They put this coating on here, you know, like it's gonna help. Now, it's when you're working on automotive AC, you can usually just kind of look around and spot the oil. These aren't quite the same. These the oil doesn't pump through the system quite the same as with an automotive. There isn't quite as much oil, so you're not going to really see a big wet spot. And then even if there was a big wet spot with all the acid and all of that, how would you even determine it? Alright, it's been sitting for basically 36 hours and it's still got 35 psi in it, so it's not leaking that bad. I mean, it's a really bad leak, but it's not like it's just hissing and going completely to zero. These, I forget what they call these tap valves. You buy these at the supply house, and when they charge these at the factory, you see they pinch it off. They don't put a Schrader valve on it. So depending on what happens here, what I find, I'll either leave this. Some guys just leave these on there forever, or I'll put a Schrader valve on it. But what I'm going to do is I've got it hooked up here. I've got my lines purged, and I'm just going to open this and just, I think the pressure of propane is usually about 120 depending on the temperature, 100, 120. I'm going to just let this fill up. And then we got a couple different methods of leak detection. I mean, it would be nice if we heard it hissing, but I don't think that's going to happen. We got an electronic leak detector, which this is really old. It uses like an ionization thing. It produces high voltage and it samples the molecules going through there, and if they change, it starts buzzing. And then we got Big Blue, and then we got a totally unorthodox method, which is just to take a torch and kind of briefly wave it over everything and see if we see a fire start. All right, here we go. Ooh. And of course, it's so small, it probably wouldn't even burn. I didn't see anything there. Let's see. It would be nice if it was in the high side in that thing on the bottom, that evaporator heating thing. And this is the electronic leak detector. You know, these leaks can be so damn hard to find, especially if it's in the middle of this thing. You know what, I don't need to hold the camera and do this. I can show you the leak if I find it. Alright, this is where the water drains from the inside, and there's a coil in here. And can we see how nasty this is? And I really want to get this tray out of here so I can inspect this. And this is some really gross stuff. Okay, here's the coil. You can see it comes right out of the compressor there. By the way, It's no problem to turn these type of things on their side. That was only ammonia refrigerators, and that was a myth that kind of stuck around forever, that you can't put a refrigerator on its side. Yeah, it's all acidic pickle juice, and it could very well be leaking out of this somewhere. I did take the torch to it and I didn't see it. I think maybe the thing to do is clean it up and put bubbles on it. Alright, well, as bad as this looks, I'm not seeing any kind of leak here. I went over it with the big blue, and it's pretty good. It's like some type of advanced soapy water, and I'm not seeing it here, but it's nasty. Like I said, these types of problems can be very hard to fix. Okay, what do we have here? Okay, you stopped on me. Bubble port cigarillo gorilla. Does that look like a little leaky poo right there in the evaporator? It's not even on the side where the welds are. It's on the other side. A little leaky poo. I wonder. See, that's not big enough to burn when you put a flame to it. Boy, that's in a shitty place too. Sorry to use four-letter words, but I don't know how to describe it, because you I like to tell him he's not opposed to getting an evaporator and just replacing it, but the thing is my time is real tight right now, and if it takes him 2 or 3 days to get an evaporator, boy, there you go. That thing is really cranking now. Look at that. Anyway, as I said, this big blue stuff, it works pretty good. It's a lot better than soap and bubbles. You can actually hear it there. Well, okay, I sprayed this side and I didn't see anything, and usually they leak on this side where all the welds are. So how do we get this thing out of here? We have to get our oxyacetylene out and take the cap tube out, and then the suction line. Crap. Baby. Well, there's the leak. I don't know if the camera's good enough to pick this up, but the pipe is cracked right there. You see that line going across there? That's actually a crack. Let's just hope it wasn't going into a vacuum and sucking water into itself, because that will, the next thing is a compressor will fail. I took the screw out there and I bent that thing out of the way, and I started looking at this, and every single one of these is cracked. Every single one of these tubes is cracked. And this has got to be a manufacturing defect, because I don't think this is something that's common. And you can see right here where this one's leaking. So I actually think there might be a bigger leak underneath in the back that's so big it just blows the bubbles right off of it. But I was actually going to try and just weld it right there, solder it, braze it up. I think I could, but since all of them are cracked, you know, just try and get a new one. I already got a call into him to try and get a new one. Okay, evaporator's on the way. They actually had it in stock. Clean this guy up. I'm going to put it back. The problem is getting the screws out of the bottom of this. That one there, both of them, this one on this side doesn't even have a head on it anymore. I mean, there's nothing there. But yeah, we're just going to change this. New filter dryer, charge it with the appropriate amount of 404. And put the original fan back in. Okay, here's our nice new OEM Delfield part. Should just be pretty much solder it in and turn it on. Well, not quite that simple, but first thing we'll do is we'll open this up and let all the gas out. No guilt about letting a few ounces of propane out into the atmosphere. Oxyacetylene, 15% silver. This doesn't solder with lead solder like home plumbing. It solders with, what do they call it, Silfloss or Silvalloy. Propane. Okay. Alright, the new evaporator is soldered in and installed. These are always very tough to braze, I guess would be the term. The new fan is installed. I had to put new electrical connectors because they were all rotted away from the acid. I put a Schrader valve on it. I cut this off. I put a Schrader valve on it. Here's the... And I actually did have a leak here, and I had to pull the propane back out of it and then solder it some more. And it's good now. And I'm going to plug it in. Just make sure I didn't weld the capillary tube shut before I pull a vacuum on it. Here we go. It's been plugged in. Device energized. That seems good. Oh, the compressor didn't like something. I heard the compressor cycle on the temperature. Maybe it's got oil in it. There we go. Let's see. Pulling down. I just want to make sure that I didn't melt this tube closed. And I didn't, because it's getting ice cold. So that's good. This is a restrictor tube right here. It's easy to melt those closed. Yeah, it's getting cold. It's flowing. We got good heat travel here, so yeah, it looks good. Doesn't look like I melted anything closed. All right, vacuum pump. Let this go for a while. Here's a piece of the original fan blade. I couldn't get the same direction fan blade, so the new one I had to reverse the motor. So to do that, you just take the motor apart and flip it over. And that one's blowing out now. Well, I came out here and the vacuum pump crapped out. Sounds like the linkage between the motor and the pump part of it broke. So it's down at full vacuum anyway. I was just letting it run, you know, a long time. Let's charge it. Okay, here we go. 10 ounces. We're charging as a liquid. Here we go. Alright, so here's a rubber coupler for the vacuum pump, and I saw that underneath, and you can see here broken. Oh crap, wonder where you get that from. Now I got that to clean up. Alright, it just cycled off. I was wondering if it was ever going to do that. It's getting dark out here. I've been on this so long. Let's see what our temp is. 30 degrees. Yep. I think we could call this a wrap. I'm done with this thing. Oh, and by the way, the first thing you do whenever working on refrigeration, including your home refrigerators, make sure the condenser coil's clean. If that coil gets dirty and plugged up, then it's going to get real inefficient and burn the compressor up. So always clean the condenser first.